All right, we are back. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. But as I was saying, like I was just too mad at Final Fantasy 15. I gotta mute myself on Facebook. All right, so I do want to keep it moving though, because I know we're about 15 minutes in and we have a lot more stuff to talk about. So let us jump in, and since I mentioned Final Fantasy, let's just cover this one real quick. I was blown away. I in the sense that like I was both impressed and angry at the same time. They are coming out with a Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. So this is coming to iOS and Android, and it's basically a chibi mobile version of Final Fantasy 15 that's going to cost between $20 and $30. They basically split the game up into 10 episodes. The first one is free, and then after that, they charge you. I think the second one and third one are 99 cents, and then after that, they start charging you about $3-4 a piece, or you could just buy the whole thing for about $20. Here's a pro tip: don't play this game. It's hot garbage.
Really?
It's awful.
Thinking of all the things Square Enix should be devoting their resources to right now: Final Fantasy VII Remake, Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, no, not a carbon copy chibi version of Final Fantasy 15. Like, the reason you played that game, if you liked the game, was because of how beautiful the visuals were.
It was
doing
beautiful.
that without the visuals, like, really?
You take that away and there's nothing left, basically, is what you're saying.
Not really. No.
Considering most of the story required you to watch setup animes and a movie, it kind of dropped you right in the middle of things, and you weren't already connected to the characters.
Pretty dumb.
For which I still haven't forgiven you, Square Enix. You've got a long way to go to make your way back into my heart. Like that was terrible. But it's on the one hand, I like admire the sheer balls on Square Enix. I was really tempted to like put this into what the fuck, but I felt like that would. I legitimately like am torn about this, because it's like I understand this game was in development for a really long time, but that's your fucking, not our fault, right? So don't like try to cram this down as many people's throat as you can. It's not a good game. It's not a good story. You fucked up. I mean, you just gotta count it as a loss, and dust yourself off and keep moving. That's it.
It's like, it's a cool idea though. It's just such a bad way to execute it, where it's like, I'm surprised it's taken them. I'm like surprised it's taken them this long to work out a way to put a full Final Fantasy game on a mobile platform. I think it's a great concept. Like, I'm sure people would buy like this version, like this kind of thing, but for episode like Final Fantasy 7 or 9 instead. Yeah, for sure.
Those games like that in chibi form, because we haven't seen them in so many years.
Yeah,
that would work.
Yeah, that would work. I could see them doing that.
Chibi Final Fantasy 8.
Yes, and no, and in the sense that, first of all, like 1 through 6 is available on your phone in their original form already.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're kind of expensive last I checked, but you're welcome to. They're like in the $10-15 range. Because a lot of them are ports of DS or 3DS versions, like remakes that were made. And then you can get, of course, 9 and 10 and 12. 12 just got a remake, right? 9 and 10 are available on Steam. So is 7 and 8.
Did 12 get a remake?
Yeah, Zodiac Age.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So 12 got a remake. And then I don't know. I think
13 is way too recent, so I don't even go there.
Yeah, 13. But who would want to play 13? That was also hot garbage.
I enjoyed 13.
Well, you're dead to me. I don't know.
This is Joe's first and last appearance on Pressing.
You're done. You're done in the world of video games, Joe. That's it. No, 13 was pretty terrible. Well,
I didn't play it.
don't do it.
Yeah.
It's a corridor running simulator. Pretty bad.
Anyway, I guess for the few people that did enjoy 15, this is kind of cool. Because I know people who did like it. It sounds like a polarizing game. So from a monetary, like financial perspective, it kind of makes sense for Square to go this way.
Well, but that's also weird
I
to
don't
me
know.
because it's like, oh, you like the game, so replay it again. Is kind of a weird.
Dude, there are some diehard Final Fantasy fans who will defend any release and they'll play it like a billion times. I don't know.
I will say this.
I just admitted to playing Final Fantasy 13.
There you go. Case closed.
I will say this: if you are someone who's much younger and you're like 13 years old or 14, 15, if you're in that ballpark right now, and this is your first or second experience with Final Fantasy, then I could see you maybe liking it because you just don't know any better. And that's okay. And that's not your fault. But no one in their right mind who is like our age, who grew up playing like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, could possibly love 15. It's a vapid piece of shit. And I hate it so very, very much.
Don't hold back, Mike.
I'm
Hold
sorry.
nothing back. Nah, I dig it. It's candid.
And you should see what he says when the cameras are off.
Yeah, seriously. Hot take. Hot take on this Wednesday night. I like it.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good.
Sorry. It comes bubbling to the top.
It's good, man. Be real. It's good.
Just get it out.
But let's move away from the hate for a little bit, and let's go from well, I was gonna say from the hate to just like snobbishness. Let's take a second to talk about the Xbox One X. Right, so this thing is coming out this week. Is launching this week. Obviously, for those not in the know, it is the sort of like an Xbox One version 2.0. Right, it's got better RAM and better CPU and shiny graphics, and it is billing itself as the most powerful console ever, which is true. Can't dispute it. It's more powerful than the PS Pro. It natively scales 4K content as opposed to upscaling, which is what the Pro does. And it's $500, which is kind of pricey.
Yeah.
So 2 interesting things that I want to sort of toss out to you guys. The first is this. PC Magazine did a little test recently. They basically tried to build a PC that is comparable to the Xbox One X, and they wound up spending $700 to do so, versus $500 for the X. So, do you think that's a good value in that regard? Right? Does that make the system a little more appealing to you? Let's talk about that first before I jump to the second topic. What are your thoughts on this? Because I think it's a little bit of a bad comparison because most PC owners at this point are just going to upgrade 1 or 2 things, right? If you're brand new, right, like if you don't own a PC, if you don't own a console, then yeah, you know what? It's not a bad investment. But if you already own a PC, I would argue, unless that PC is like 10 years old or something like that, it's probably going to be about $500 or less, depending on how old your parts are, to get it to the same place, right?
Right.
What do you guys? What's your guys' take on it? Good deal, bad deal, something you're interested in, something you're not interested in?
I'm also thinking of it from the standpoint of like the casual gamer, not even a casual gamer, just someone who like there's PC gamers and people who can get really hardcore and really want their game to be the crispest experience possible.
Sure.
But that's not every gamer. That's like a casual gamer. Okay, you say it's the most powerful system. Okay, like any other system could play the games you want to play. Like, I feel like that's still more of a thing. And I feel like Xbox's number one hurdle to really cross is working on the games, working on getting people more involved, working on, I would say, having like exclusive titles, but I wonder if that age has kind of passed. Like Nintendo set up their exclusive titles way in the past, and now like they've legacied in, and now whenever you think of Zelda, Mario, Pokemon, you know it's Nintendo. But if a new console-specific version wanted to come out for Xbox, like it's a much steeper gradient than it would have been. Like, remember what happened when Tomb Raider was originally going to come to Xbox exclusively? Everyone flipped their shit, and they had to backtrack like 2 days later saying, no, it's a timed exclusive. Like, eventually everyone else will get it.
Right. The other thing I want to mention real quick is there's a large price disparity between the Xbox One and the Xbox One X. So the Xbox One you could get for about $300, even a little less with some, I'm sure Black Friday deals are going to discount it further to $250 or in that ballpark, maybe $300, but you get a free game or something like that. This is $500 for the base system. So this is a pretty sizable jump.
Yeah.
Now look, when the console first came out, what was it, 4 years ago? Yeah, it was $400, but you also got the Kinect with it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of understandable. So this is I think a bit of a tough sell. And Joe, I think you're right. I think the games are going to be a big component, and there's a Microsoft story we're going to talk about soon that I think ties into that, but we'll hold off. Let me toss out one more question to you guys real quick, and that is resolution versus frame rate, right? So what the system does is it basically says, look, we're going to do 4K resolution, and we're going to make sure you have a steady 30 frames per second frame rate. Do you think that's important versus having a slightly lower resolution, like a 1080 or even a 2540 by 1680 and getting 60 frames per second or getting 90 frames per second? What, in your opinion, do you sort of place higher in terms of importance? The resolution, the frame rate? I mean, obviously, no one is going to be playing here on like a 480p here, but I'm saying, it
really depends on the type of game. Like, if you're doing something more cinematic, like Assassin's Creed or Final Fantasy, or something that is very high on the graphics, like the visual experience, the immersive story, or lack thereof, it's definitely more about the resolution. But if you're doing something more competitive, where literally like nanoseconds come into play and you need things to be smooth, then it's definitely going to be frame rate.
I agree.
You don't want that lag in a competitive setting.
Sure.
Yeah, when it's a fast-paced game, a lot's happening on the screen, you really, really want those frame rates so your eyes don't get fatigued watching it, trying to keep up with it. That was a good question, though. I was like confused though, because like I'm not really a stickler for either. Like, I have pretty low standards for resolution and frame rate. I'm so used to 30. I'm so used to 1080. Like, it doesn't really matter to me that much. But put it that way, then yeah, it really depends on the game. But I think,
but the thing is, most of us, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, Connor.
Most
of us, I think are general gamers. I mean, I think most people. Yes, there's some people that only play for shooters or only play like racing games or something like that. But I think most people play several types of games. So overall, what would you say is more important? I will tell you that for me, at the end of the day, I will take a higher frame rate over a slightly higher resolution, because you want that buttery smoothness that comes. The game is always going to look and play better when it's at a higher frame rate. 30 is nice, 60 is much better, and 90 is godly. But
I might be kind of ruined on this just because I don't know if I've really ever experienced 60 frames per second, like consistently. I don't know if I just don't know if I've had that. So like, gun to my head, I'd have to say resolution, just because I like the detail. I like, I like the big picture, and I'm fine with 30 frames per second. Like I'm used to that, so that doesn't really bother me. So gun to my head, I'd have to say I'd rather just go with good resolution personally.
What about you, Joe?
I'm kind of torn, but also in the opposite direction, because for me, I've never really known if like frame rate matters that much to me. So resolution. However, for a while in my life, I played most of my games on a TV that was made in the early 2000s. So no matter how great the game was, I already had hit the ceiling for as much of resolution could have gotten. Like, I played Black Flag on like a TV where I could still see the lines. And like, no, I still thought it was a great game. But in that case, like, if there was moments where like I was running and the fluidity became much lower than I'd expected, then yeah, I'll actually probably have to go with a better frame rate.
That's fair. That's fair. I will add to say the screen that you're playing on obviously plays a massive pivotal role. And if you're playing on a very large television at home, like a 55-inch or 60-inch television, then yeah, you definitely want to lean towards resolution. If you're playing on a smaller television or a monitor on your PC, which is like 27 inches or 32 inches, basically anything under 50 inches, the frame rate is going to be a little bit more important than the resolution. So toss that out there. But let's talk about our other Microsoft story. And this comes straight from Microsoft. I was very impressed when I heard the news. Not this first part. The first part has to do with the fact that they are going to focus on game streaming, which is like, duh, okay, great. Right. The second part of the press release was that they're also going to be focusing on acquiring new studios because they understand that when it comes to exclusives, they suck. They don't really have much going on at the moment. Crackdown got delayed. There's Forza, which is nice, but you're either gonna. I think it's not gonna bring in new people, right? You either like Forza or you don't give a shit about Forza. It's one or the other at this point. I don't think there's anything really exciting happening at Microsoft, and think back to E3. Outside of a few indie titles, I didn't see anything AAA from them that made me go like, "Oh my god!"
And also, if there was anything that was exciting, it wasn't exclusive.
It wasn't exclusive. Like Anthem was great, but it's not exclusive. So
right. Yeah, the only Xbox exclusive that's even been a blip on my radar since the Xbox One came out was probably Halo 5, and even that was just like, yeah, I'd rent that. I would rent that if I had an Xbone. Like that's like all I thought. Like other than that, it hasn't even been like on the brain at all for me.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, in the past generation, with the Xbox 360 and the PS3, the PS3 was in a bad place for a long time. It was not doing well as a console, and it really wasn't until I would say about 4 or 5 years into its life cycle. Although the change probably began about 3 years in, but really, I don't feel like it hit its stride until its 4th or 5th year, which is about where we're at right now for this generation. So do you feel like Xbox is primed to make a comeback or a resurgence? Because they're super behind. They're being, PlayStation's outselling them 2-1, honestly. And I don't see a new $500 console all of a sudden making people like saying, shut up and take my money and just, going all in on that.
I just don't think the library's there to support it. Like Sony's just eating their lunch too badly right now for them to really come back out of nowhere in the 11th hour. I just don't see it happening because if I saw a bunch of really solid game announcements that are exclusives like coming out early mid 2018, I'd think, okay, there's a shot for Microsoft to really pull their ass out of the fire. But right now, it's just not looking good in general.
And also, sorry to interrupt. Did you?
No, I'm good. You're good.
And I'm also just thinking of what it was like when Nintendo debuted the Switch. Like, Nintendo had been behind, arguably, besides the 3DS, they had been behind Sony and Microsoft. But then when they came out with the Switch, it was something that was kind of in Nintendo's sweet spot, but at the same time, completely unique. It's something that could compete with a console, but at the same time, still had that handheld feel to it. And
right. It was just,
and you knew there'd be that library with it.
Right. Well, I mean, and they came out, to Nintendo's credit, I still think their library is super weak, but they sort of loaded the deck really, really well. Initially. So with Splatoon, with Mario Odyssey, with of course Zelda, they really sort of came out with a bang to their great success, and I hope it continues. But I also think that we're going to see a huge fall off unless we see
Well-
some big announcements from them soon.
Well, this year Nintendo followed up really well with announcing a Metroid game for it. The fact that Pokemon games are now moving from 3DS.
They gave us a title. They gave us like, yes, I agree with you, Joe. Like, they made announcements, but it's
You
there's
still
no
haven't
development.
seen anything about it yet. Yeah.
It's gonna be like 2 years out before, I'm thinking there's gonna be a drought, essentially, is what I'm saying. Like, yeah, the good stuff will get there eventually, but
Yeah.
how long are we gonna have to wait
I think
before?
I think the point I'm trying to say is Microsoft can maybe one day catch up, but like Nintendo, they need to start laying groundwork and not
Which is what this
thinking-
is.
Yeah, and not thinking that this is going to be the thing that changes everything. Like, no, you start making the right steps.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The Xbox One X is going to appeal to a certain, to that particular person that must have the latest or the best or the pixel counter who like cares about, just getting the best, although that person will probably have a PC, but if you're a console gamer and you want the most bang for your buck, yeah, this is good. But I don't see a lot of people like who already have a PlayStation, who already have a PS Pro saying, "Oh yeah, I'm totally going to trade this in and get an Xbox One X."
Never happening.
No, I
No.
don't see it happening. I don't. So listen, Microsoft, we want to see you do well. Competition is a very good thing. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. I will say this, Microsoft isn't really good with like buying other studios, though. They have a poor track record of it, if you think about it. Like, look at Rare, right? They bought Rare. Everyone thought it was a brilliant move. What came out of it? Some Banjo-Kazooie.
Pretty much zero. Yeah, pretty much goose egg.
Perfect Dark.
Perfect. Yeah, I guess.
And now we're getting a Pirates game. Woo.
Wait, which one is that? Is that Sea of Thieves?
Sea
or
of
is that
Thieves. Yeah,
that
Sea
actually
of
looks
Thieves.
kind of cool, but again, that's not exclusive. It all comes down to decent exclusives, I think.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be on PC as well, but I don't
That's
see
probably
it.
how I'll
Yeah.
play it.
Because it's a matter of, do you want to play this game on the only system you can play it on, or the system you already have?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's
Exactly.
like, dude, Microsoft, like, you used to be so, dominant. Like, the 360 was such a powerhouse of a console. It really ruled its generation for years. And it's like, what happened? I mean, just don't get it,
Yeah, so I mean, Microsoft needs to start throwing around the big bucks, but also do it in a smart way. Because look, Lionhead was a sort of like a crown jewel for them for a long time, and the Fable series
Mhm.
did very, very well for them. Not all those games are amazing, but they sold a lot.
Yeah.
Lionhead is gone now, right? Scalebound got
Mhm.
canceled. So besides Crackdown, which honestly looks like 3 looks the same as 2, just shinier graphics to me,
Yeah.
honestly. But anyways, in the interest of time, I do have to keep it moving. We did Microsoft. Let's talk. Oh, well, yeah. Let's talk about LA Noire super quick, and then we will round things out with Overwatch as well. So, LA Noire, pretty cool game. If you haven't played it, you really should. It's an excellent adventure game. Would you call? How would you describe LA Noire? It's not. I wouldn't say adventure game. It's sort of like Grand Theft Auto meets.
I'd say it's a crime drama procedural, choose your own kind of. I think adventure game is not a bad way to describe it.
No?
when you
Okay.
when you add in like the qualifiers, like it's it's a crime drama adventure game
with
kind
open
of.
world elements.
I guess so. Yeah, I didn't play it. I just know a little bit about
You should
it.
play it.
I
Very, very good.
it looks cool. It's a rent, I think, for me. Rent it and just get through it and see what the fuss is all about.
So if you're a Switch owner, you can now play it. I just have some bad news for you, and that is there is no way you can play this game without buying external media. It's not happening. So the game, if you want to download it, it is 29 gigs to download.
Wow.
29 gigs. And the storage space that comes, like native to the Switch is 26 gigs. So you can't do it. Even if you buy the physical media, though, even if you go out and you buy the game, you still have a 14 gig download that's full of day one patches and content updates and I don't know what else. So it's still going to take up a hell of a lot of space on your system. And I think this is a problem that is going to keep trending up on the Switch over and over again. I don't know that this is going to be to their detriment, but pretty much everyone is going to have to buy external media to enjoy any kind of third-party games. On the Switch.
Nintendo's never been especially great at packing firepower into their hardware. Like when it comes to memory and processing power, that's always taken a backseat or even like a caboose to everything else. And here's some examples of that. Sometimes I think that all this downloadable stuff patches and internet connectivity in games, sometimes I wonder if that was a mistake or not, because it's at least when back in the days of just compact discs holding all your games, you could at least just set that up and go. You never had to worry about a patch or an update. I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling a little nostalgic, but that's pretty ridiculous. Out of the box, I guess Nintendo just didn't really see that coming. Hey, there's going to be a remaster of an old game that's going to come to Switch and it's going to be huge. We didn't think about that.
So, I mean, clearly Nintendo knows how to optimize their own games, because look at Mario Odyssey. That game is only about 5-6 gigs. It's really not that big. Yeah. I think it comes just under 6 gigs. It's like 5.7, but other developers haven't figured this out, or maybe because they use a different engine to power their games.
Yeah.
Hell of a lot more space.
That's probably part of why a third-party support for the Switch might not get any better than it has for previous Nintendo consoles, because you have issues like this, people just don't know how to optimize their ports or whatnot for the Switch. So,
is it because Nintendo doesn't know how to maximize the space, or is it because the Switch is still partially? Is it no? I was going to say the fact that if this was on PlayStation or something, PlayStation has a lot more gigabytes to work with.
It's because Nintendo is lazy, son of a bitch. They basically what they're thinking was, we want to make the console as cheap as possible, and if we have to put in a hard drive in there, it's going to drive costs up. So I
was wondering more if it was about the size, because it's still also technically a partial portable console. So I'm wondering if that limited them in any way.
That's an interesting point. I feel like
what was the gigabyte usage on the old PSP? That's really the most I can think to compare it to.
I don't know.
Well, that's different. That was a different generation, so the games were lower res and all that stuff. So you could look at the Vita, because the Vita would probably be the closest comparison. Even that's a couple of years old at this point. Yeah. But we can look it up. Again, I'm sure Vita games weren't. If Josh was here, he would know, because he has a Vita. But Vita games weren't as graphically intense. But that's an interesting point. It is a portable console, so I'm sure that had some factor to it. Maybe they wanted to make it a little thinner or something like that. But listen, I don't give a shit. It's on Nintendo to have bought you want to use micro SD cards? Fine. Give me a micro SD card. Factor that in. Buy it in bulk. Order 500,000 SD cards. I'm sure you'll get a discount for ordering 500,000, and sell it to us at cost, right? Make it the Switch 320 or 330 or something like that. But give us, instead, because the other thing is, you need a very specific micro SD card for it to work. It's not just any micro SD card. The micro SD card has to have a certain rating to it. I don't remember what it is. You can look this one up. Oh yes, it has to have a read speed of at least 60 megabytes a second, or megabits a second.
Jeez.
But I don't know how to check that on a particular card, so yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of curious to our listeners out there who do have a Switch. Is this a factor? How much money did you spend on the micro SD card? tweet at us at Pack Podcast. We'd love to hear from you guys. And if you do, there might be something in there for you. So our last story, just because we're hampered by time, but I wanted to include this in there, has to do with the Overwatch League. And we've talked about this a couple of times before. I'm actually super psyched about this, and I don't even play Overwatch all that much. But Blizzard is actively trying to organize a league similar to the NFL or the NBA. Season 1 is kicking off January 10th, so it's just honestly around the corner. We're basically 2 months away. 2 months away. And it is right now we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12 teams. You've got Boston Uprising, Dallas Fuel, Florida Mayhem, Houston Outlaws, London Spitfire. Los Angeles has 2 teams because Los Angeles, Gladiators and Valiant. And obviously the, Overwatch or Blizzard is based in, has a studio in LA. We've got New York Excelsior, Philadelphia Fusion, San Francisco Shock, Seoul Dynasty, and Shanghai Dragons. I couldn't think of a more generic name than that.
Yeah, it sounds like the XFL all over again. Remember the XFL, the Extreme Football League? Oh my God, it was like Vince McMahon from the WWE tried to like start a football league, and there were like those generic over the top like macho team names just like that. This reminds me of that. It's just funny. I do like the London Spitfire though. That's pretty cool because the Spitfire was a World War II plane from England. It's kind of cool. Just saying.
Right. So this is, they are doing a lot here. They revamped the program that basically lets you view the action. They put in a bunch of systems to help casters show you what is happening in the game and allow someone who is not a big player to still be able to follow the action, right? This is pretty cool to me. Preseason starts December 6th if you want to check out some of the early action here. And I personally think this is the start of something big, but what about you guys? Are you going to be watching the Overwatch League, or you don't care so much? See Connor shaking his head.
Nah, not my thing. I mean, I haven't been into esports since they began, whenever that was. Not planning to start now. Definitely not really all that interested in Overwatch. Never played it. Never really was interested in it. So, I mean, good for them. I'm glad they have this thing going for them. I mean, it's cool that it's developing. It's not for me. I got other stuff to do.
I'm a little torn. Like, on one hand, like, if you would have asked me maybe like 2 years ago, I never saw the point in watching like people stream a game. Now it's like today, I watch Team 4-Star do their games. I watch YouTubers like Blessius, but I'm not sure I do that because it's watching the game. It's seeing how good they are. It's because of the personality the players have and the little stories they come up with as they play. So this is literally just like competition, and there's not much of the player's personality in it, then probably not.
Well, you'll probably, if you start to follow a team, I'm sure you'll get to know the players, right? And I think Blizzard is hoping that by linking the teams to cities, that they will get some sort of a fan following, that you will watch the New York Excelsiors because you're in New York, right? And that you'll have some investment in them as a fellow New Yorker, as it were. So it's an interesting, it's a bold idea. No one else has done this. And while you certainly have esports for Dota and for League of Legends, it's based on country as opposed to cities. So that's a very different approach.
And I feel like if any company could pull this off, it's Blizzard.
Yes.
Chances are good for them, yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest issue with this, of course, is like, where are you going to go watch it, right? That's the big issue. And Blizzard has built sort of an arena, or converted one, if you want to be technical about it, in Los Angeles called the Blizzard Arena. But I think they're really hoping that more arenas will be built or converted or something like that. But listen, if League of Legends can sell out Madison Square Garden for just the North American final, not even the World Championships, then I think this can absolutely, succeed.
Now I'm just picking up after one of your questions from earlier. Now I'm just afraid, like 20 years from now, I just think of what it was like getting into a bar for the Manny Pacquiao fight a couple of years ago. And I'm wondering if 20 years from now, that's going to be what it's like to see one of these games in a bar.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's going to, I'm sure some rivalries will crop up. Certain teams will, have some really close matches. And this is the beginning of something really different. And, we've talked about this on the show before, but Joe, can you imagine like your child or your grandchild, instead of having like a Michael Jordan or a poster of like Joe Manning or something like that, Joe Montana or whoever.
Right.
Now they have a poster of an esports player.
Yeah, who's gonna be the LeBron James of Overwatch, right. and who's gonna be wearing their jersey like 30 years from now or whatever it is.
And then,
what I want to know is
you get a special skin of that player.
Who's going to be the Dennis Rodman? That's what I want to know.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be fun when we all figure that one out together. Can't wait.
That should be interesting. So we promised you what the fuck stories, and what the fuck stories you will have. We have two more for you. One is more of a like, this is really cool, as opposed to what the fuck. It basically has to do with Assassin's Creed again. Recently, in real life, outside of the video game, there's been a pretty cool discovery at the Great Pyramid of Giza. They discovered like this space that no one has seen before, and the only way that they were able to sort of confirm the space existed was using the sort of this rare space particle, because you can't just like drill a hole into the Great Pyramid of Giza.
I mean, you could, but you shouldn't.
You could, but you shouldn't. That's right. Thank you. So they had to use all this sort of weird tech to confirm that this space exists in the pyramid. Well, surprise, surprise, Assassin's Creed has that space in there already, which I thought was really, really cool. They worked with like Egyptologists, who there's basically like a theory as to how the pyramid was built. So based on that theory, this space should be there, and voila. Pretty crazy, right?
One thing that Ubisoft has always been pretty good with, again, I haven't played every Assassin's Creed, so I can't talk much about post Black Flag era, but they've always been really good with like doing their homework and trying to make things as realistic as possible and playing around with the gray area. So I feel like this is definitely something where, they played with a gray area, with a theory, and it actually worked out. Although now I'm just wondering what other gray area they played around with that actually will turn out to be true in a few years.
Right. It should be interesting to see what other crazy things they've put in there. But our last what the fuck story, this one's pretty up there for you guys. There is apparently, and I didn't even know this was a series, but there is a train simulator arcade series called Densha de Go in Japan, of course. And the new one is out now. So we have a video here. This is like not someone's special setup in the house. This is a giant booth in an arcade where you too can go and pretend that you are driving a Japanese commuter train because reasons. I honestly don't know why anyone would play this.
Don't you get it, Mike? You can experience the excitement of conveying 100 commuters to their job every morning
and being on time.
Yeah, I mean the thrill of accomplishment when you pull into the station at just the right time and doors slide open. Oh man, there's nothing better. Where's your imagination, dude?
Yeah, clearly.
This is so messed up.
Am I wrong?
On one hand, I'm really impressed, but at the same time, really, really confused.
There's clearly a market for simulators of all kinds. I mean, flight simulator, but like doing that at an arcade, that's definitely a very Japan thing. Like I think that's kind of a cultural thing of appreciating the technology of that. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, and like most simulators of any kind, I'm fairly certain when I try it out, it will teach me that I should never get behind one of these actual vehicles.
Yeah, That's an important lesson to learn. Yeah.
Honestly, if it was me, I would just go in and just like push all the buttons and just like go full speed. Like I would try to crash or something. I would just try to like lose as quickly as possible.
I'd ask like, where are the gun buttons? What do I hit to launch the missiles and stuff?
But no, my guess is honestly that space is obviously at a premium in Japan. And I don't think most people have the room for like 3 monitors and like a whole console that accurately replicates, the setup of a train. So I think this is.
And would you really go through all that for just one game? Like, people get upset that Battleship, it takes up too much space to set up. Like,
yeah, really.
You don't understand. Like, they have ones that like simulate like Gundams and shit. Like, you get in there.
That I would do.
I've seen like.
Yeah,
you've seen those like Steel Battalion controller setups. Like they take up an entire table and like they take like 3 monitors.
Oh, this is like beyond Steel Battalion shit. Like,
yeah.
You go into these booths and there's like a bunch of levers to manipulate your Gundam in different ways, and it's like 3 screens.
Yeah, I actually played a Mech Warrior, one of those not long ago. That was fun.
Like that I can get, right? Like
if you're doing a simulator of something you can't actually do in real life, all the way.
Yeah,
but like something that like, hey,
doesn't want to pilot a giant robot.
Exactly. Yeah, like if I wanted to drive a train, I would go to school to learn how to drive a train.
That's a steady job. Yeah, I'd look into that.
Again, driving simulator and driving in real life. Like, thank God driving simulators are not an accurate representation of how you drive. Otherwise, I don't know how I got my license.
Yeah, really. Seriously.
Very true. Very true. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this episode. As always, make sure you hit like, subscribe, or comment below. We'd love to hear from you guys. Until next time, I have been your host, Michael Schluger.
I've been Connor Howard.
I've been Joe Pelican.
Have a great week of gaming. Push a lot of buttons for us. We will see you next week.